Let's talk Star Wars. A lot to talk about with this episode. You know what I think is funny, by the way, because I'm on our community page right now. I think this is like you and I just finished the Mandalorian breakdown episode or whatever about like how we're a little nervous about this season because it just doesn't feel as cohesive as season 2, and it doesn't feel like there's really that overarching story plot that's as present as season 2, which makes me a little nervous, especially considering we're over halfway through now. Looking at our community page, like people comment, we'll have, hey, what did you think about Mando? What did you think about Bad Batch? And the Bad Batch comments, there's always like 2 times as many likes, as many engagements. Like people are just more excited about it. Mando, it's just like people will comment, and this isn't a great barometer. This is obviously a very small sample size, but just from my perspective looking at this, people on the Mando ones will just be like, it was great. Or they'll be like, cool stuff. Or they'll say,
they won't give any detail.
I like the stuff with Bo and Din. But they're just not as excited. There's nothing to comment about. With the community page, and maybe we can just start with the community page this week, is like people are like, this was heartbreaking. What an emotional roller coaster of a finale. It was amazing, and it proved that the filler episodes mattered because they were essential viewing. I don't agree with that point, actually. Viewing on any rewatch, doing them to being essential tech arcs. But either way, like people are excited to talk about the show because there's more to talk about here. And I don't necessarily disagree with that because there was a lot going on in this episode that was like really good Star Wars content, and it at least the season did have, it didn't have as much of an overarching story as I would have liked, but it still had like a common theme throughout, you know, and picking up on the storylines from last season, you know.
It had plot points that you could engage in, like the cloning plot point. Mm-hmm. Specifics like that, or what was going on with Omega and then Lama Su and Nala Se. And there are a lot of questions that the episodes presented, whereas it with Mando, it just feels like more casual viewing right now. Like you don't need to commit a lot of your attention to it.
Well, Mando is just like, there's no connective tissue between this season and much else, honestly. It's all just like we go into it week over week and you're like, all right, it's just, I don't know, what's the
what
story
are we getting?
Because it doesn't connect to last season because they already did that with the Grogu being returned to Mando in Book of Boba Fett, which, by the way, I loved seeing that at the time. Like it was just great to have Mando back and make Book of Boba Fett like have a couple episodes that didn't suck. But I look back on it now and I'm like, that was such a big mistake. The more I think about it, I'm like, and you called this actually before I did, but I'm like, that was such a big mistake because that was the connective tissue between season 2 and season 3. And then people in season 3, like I mentioned last episode, are going, wait, what? How did he get Grogu back? Did I miss something? Yeah, you did. You missed 2 big episodes in the Book of Boba Fett, which I don't blame you for not watching. It's not The Mandalorian. It's a totally different show. So yeah, I the more I'm reflecting on it, I'm like, oof. But it's just something interesting that I've noticed is people seem to have a lot more thoughts on the Bad Batch recently, which by the way, I kind of do too. Like we have a lot to talk about today.
Yeah, this episode's going to be chock full of stuff to discuss. Also, the Bad Batch have more. Their characters are, save for a couple, because I do have a lot of thoughts on this. Their characters are more defined. You know, it's really hard not to get invested in Crosshair's story, for example. He's a really interesting and complicated character, and you want to find out how his journey is going to go and what kind of like morality decisions he's going to make. Whereas if with like Mando, we're not seeing a whole lot of character this season. He's just kind of going with the flow, doing whatever. I mean, you kind of have some conflict within Bo-Katan, but Mando's almost like the dog on the leash.
Yeah, and I mean, even with other characters too, like Paz Vizsla. Okay, we get he didn't like Mando at first, but that's just because of like 1 or 2 things that he said to him. In Book of Boba Fett, by the way, not even in the show.
Yeah.
There was never him sitting down and being like, hey, I don't like you, here's why. You know, or why are you doing things that way? Here's how I would do them. Like there's not enough intermingling with the characters, with dialogue that's believable that makes us feel for
engage
them
with them
the
and sympathize.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like with Bad Batch, I think that's definitely a strong suit. Is they're so efficient. I mean, I know Crosshair was only in like 3 episodes this season, but his episodes were efficient. You know, his
very
episode
well told.
With Cody, they're well told. His episode with Mayday. And that. It's just better done. Also, the stuff with Tech, you know, we kind of predicted what was happening, which we can get into this story a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. Anyways, we should probably jump into the the episode. Also, welcome everybody to the show.
Hello.
Today we're doing Bad Batch season 2 finale. We're just gonna kind of pretend these are 2 episodes. I think there's a different director for them, but we'll just say, whatever, directed by these 2 people.
I don't know why they're not combining these into one episode. Like, why do we have to keep them separate? Can't they just be like one hour finale? I don't understand the breakup.
Syndication or something. I don't know. Yeah,
it's very, very strange. Do we have any Star Wars news?
Not from my end. I mean, not since we recorded yesterday, Mandalorian, or 2 days ago.
2 days ago. I don't think so. I think next weekend is really going to be the big breaking Star Wars news, because Celebration, I think, starts on Thursday.
Oh, right. Did you upload the Mandalorian breakdown?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
It's in the middle of. I was gone all day yesterday. I'll probably have it up at some point today. I just got to pack for my vacation.
Okay.
So.
Cool. Yeah, let's get that up. Guys, go check that out. Make sure to also like, subscribe, tell your friends about the episode. Go to our community page and comment, or write us in at anotherstarwarspod@gmail.com. Let us know what your theories and thoughts are for Season 3 of Bad Batch or Mandalorian or anything else. We would love to talk about it on the show. Also, check out our merch shop below. I just ordered a hat today, another Star Wars Pod hat, which is in the mail, and I'm going to be wearing that because I love hats, and I want to sport some of our merch on this channel. I also have a shirt here. Look at these shirts. See?
Ooh.
Isn't that cool?
Ooh.
But this is not the only type of merch we have. We also have Hello There t-shirts, Ahsoka t-shirts, Filoni Favreau 2024. So go look at that. And also like and subscribe and click notification bell. And also follow us on social media, *Wars_pod. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. And leave us the reviews on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all that. Okay.
And tell us how much you love us.
No Star Wars news, I don't think.
I don't think so either. I think by the time next week rolls around, we're going to have our hands full. So until then, I am more than content to just wait for news to break. So I think we can just get straight into Bad Batch, because we have a loaded episode to discuss here.
We sure do. So yeah, let's jump in. This is 2 episodes of TBB. What's the first one called? We'll just call it Plan 99.
Summit? I think it's the Summit and Plan 99.
The Imperial's little business conference and Plan 99. These are directed by Brad Rau, Nate Villanueva, and Stuart Lee. We've seen those directors before. Also written all by Jennifer Corbett. And Dave Filoni, and it says George Lucas too, but I think those are just like legacy writing credits. Official descriptions is an infiltration proves more challenging than expected, as well as the heroes are tested. So we're going to kind of clump these in as one. On where we start off this episode, this finale, on Pabu. Tech has briefed the rest of the Bad Batch about his search on the Imperial files in the Advanced Science Division. He doesn't have much information about Crosshair's location and Dr. Hemlock. Echo informs the rest of the clones that Hemlock is scheduled to attend a Imperial conference at the Marriott on Governor Wilhuff Tarkin's compound on Eridu in 2 rotations.
The Marriott.
They're going to have a seminar on the Death Star and torture and Imperial probes and all that stuff. Echo proposes planting a homing beacon in Hemlock's ship. Hunter's skeptical about the plan, but they need to track him down. Tech says that Crosshair's their brother, and Omega says, I thought this was a funny thing here. Omega's like, yeah, Crossy is our brother. And they always kind of like look at her and ignore her. I thought that was kind of funny. Hunter asks about reinforcements. They say that their team is small enough to get in and out without, Echo says they can get in and out without causing too much of a stir. Hunter agrees. Before leaving, Omega tells Fee that they're leaving on a mission. Fee says she expects details when they return. Before going up to Tech, and she's like, were you going to leave without saying goodbye? Wanda Sykes thinks Tech is a hunk, which is weird. I don't know. I wouldn't picture these 2 together, but pretty funny that they're
yeah, and it only came out in like the 2 recent episodes. It's not like they had a ton of buildup up until this point for this potential relationship. It was just, she kind of flirted with him on their first interaction. Like, she's like, oh, hey, brown eyes. And then he's like, I don't understand what flirting is. And then completely goes off on this tangent on eye color and iris and all this kind of stuff. So I feel like this relationship was a little out of left field. You know, I mean, they didn't even have that much interaction in the Indiana Jones arc.
Yeah.
So maybe they could have built that up to be a little bit more than what we saw. Not that I totally mind this relationship. I think it's actually an interesting aspect of the show, given the fact that we've never seen a clone romance. So I think it's interesting that they put it in there, but there also wasn't like a ton of build up to it. It became somewhat prominent in the Pabu episode where they first get to the island.
They didn't focus on it enough, in my opinion. Or also, it didn't feel very believable to me.
I don't think it's believable. It's cute. It's cute, but I don't know if they've like built that up to have. With what happens later in the episode, I'm not sure that you feel maybe like the loss of that relationship as much.
Yeah, that's true. You definitely don't. I would agree with that.
Which could leave open-ended things.
Mm-hmm. She says, don't get involved with any pirates or mercenaries. She's hinting that she has feelings for him. He just doesn't give a shit. Like,
he just kind of like looks at it, gives her an awkward glance, and like looks back down to his data pad. He's like, flirtation does not compute.
Yeah. It's like, whatever, bitch. See you later. This is making me uncomfortable. Meanwhile, we get to Hemlock's Imperial cruiser arriving on Eriadu. I forget how to pronounce that. They descend into the hangar. He's greeted by shock troopers, escorting him to Governor Tarkin and the other Imperial officers. Tarkin remarks that Hemlock is late, and he says there were matters that required his attention. While traveling through hyperspace, Tech tells his clones that he's identified a suitable location to land. Echo tells them that he has clearance code, and he and Rex acquired from one of their contacts. They're able to sneak on in as Vessel 1143. The Marauder descends into the Cloudy Mountains. The Bad Batch is walking through a forest. Omega asks if they are making a sidewind breach, while Tech adds that worked on Raxus. They're like, we can't use tanks or explosives here. They approach a rail line that leads to the compound. Echo and Bad Batch study the fortifications. They're like, hey, we're going to have to disable the sensor. We can't just blow it up because they'll know, but we can disable it for a little bit while we use our grappling hooks, whatever, which is what they do. They disable it and then shoot their grappling hooks up to these little monorails heading into Disney World or the Imperial Summit.
So there is something of note here. I think a couple things just in the finale in general, like the animation in general this season has been really unbelievable in quality. And some of these shots are so realistic. There's a couple shots in the Marionette meeting with Tarkin and Hemlock and Krennic, and then that other guy whose name currently escapes me, where the lighting just felt so professionally done. Like in a live action, like something that you would see like in a live action movie. There's a couple scenes, where Tarkin is talking and you can see the hologram in the foreground, like in front of him, and you can kind of see that like reflecting off their faces. It just came off so cinematic to me. And I've never been so impressed with the quality of animation in a TV series like this. And I really think that Lucasfilm currently sets the bar for the quality that 3D animation can really get to. And I honestly, like watching this show, if there's something that I absolutely adore about it, is it really gets me passionate for just animation as a medium in general.
Yeah.
Because they're constantly flexing that muscle and going, look at what we can do here. Look at what we can do here. Like some of these images, especially with like the little monorail over the snowy pit, they look like photographs. And that to me is just absolutely absurd that we've even gotten to that point in this industry.
It was really well done. The snow and stuff in the season with Mayday and Wrecker, like there was a lot of highlights throughout the season in terms of animation, but I totally agree with you. The colors, the mouth movements, like weird stuff like that, facial expressions, I've always been really impressed with that. One thing that does bother me though, I will say, with animation, and this specific to Clone Wars Bad Batch stuff, is when the characters talk, and they did this in the Imperial Summit. I'll see if I can imitate it. They go like this when they're talking a lot. Like when they're making a point, they're going like this. They'll be like, oh, and
the rebel scum is overhead.
Like, and we must deal with this at a different time. And they always put their hand down like that. I'm like, no one moves like that. Nobody. It's one of the most unrealistic. No one goes like this when they talk. And they're just doing it to make them move. Again, guys, also, you know the show, you know me. I'm Mr. Nitpick. They call me Mr. Nitpick. I'm not saying it ruins the show or anything. I'm just saying it's something I notice about this type of animation where they always do this little thing when they're talking. I've never seen a human do that ever when they're talking.
I think it's to add interest in the animated scene, just 100%. So they have something to do. So you know 100%. How like actors, like advice for actors, where let's say like you're doing an interrogation scene, as actors are advised to pick up things or props or play with them as they're acting.
Yeah.
Because it makes for a more interesting viewing experience. It's like Robert Downey Jr. in the first Avengers movie, where he's talking to Mark Ruffalo, Dr. Banner, in the scene, and he's like eating this case of like M&Ms or blueberries as he's talking to him. And I later learned that it's not because that was like in the script. It's just Robert Downey Jr. was eating before the scene shot. And then they shot the scene. He just continued eating.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. It adds color.
I think when they add these things like the hand movements, I will agree with you. I've noticed they do that a lot, and it is weird. But I think they're just doing that to keep it interesting, as opposed to them just sitting there with like their hands on the desk.
I know, but they do such a good job in other circumstances, like with the little nuances sometimes with the animation of like, for example, last episode with Crosshair, like he's stumbling around and like. The action sequences are so well done, or him struggling to get the chip in to send the transmission out to the Bad Batch. Like you could do other colorful stuff animation wise of like them picking up something while they're talking or whatever. But like just doing this seems like kind of like a cheap way to like make that, because I've never seen anyone do that. However, it doesn't ruin the show. It's just something I've noticed, and I think it's funny. Okay. So, but other than that, yes, totally agree. The animation has been incredible. In fact, I think this is highlighted here. Another great action sequence as they're on the monorail system and they reach the compound. Mm-hmm. That action sequence of them taking out the Stormtroopers was really cool, knocking them over the edge. Also, they killed them this time. Thank you. They didn't stun them. I don't know when they decided to make the decision to stop stunning Stormtroopers, but I like it. They're blasting them away.
Yeah, I think the action sequences, the choreography, that's something that we've also highlighted throughout the season. There's a particular shot in this episode later where it's Tech and Hunter versus the Stormtroopers, but the camera follows Hunter, and then it shows Tech walking into the frame without breaking the camera shot, and they are like fighting the Stormtroopers as they're walking down the hallway. So I think like it's like the choreography combined with the camera direction combined with the animation, it just like all blends together so seamlessly. And I just think that they've continued to elevate that, and it's just mind-boggling to me, because it's like you think that something's reached its peak, but it's like, nope, we're going to push it even further in the next episode. And it's just something that's been really prevalent throughout season 2, and something that I'll continue to appreciate, because it's not easy stuff.
No. But they do a really good job. I agree with you, other than this thing. Okay. They go to the conference room. This guy, Hurst, whatever his name is, General Hurst, Ramodi, whatever, advocates a widespread deployment of stormtroopers to secure military presence across all sections. I like this guy. I don't know who the voice actor was. Really believable. Really well done, I thought.
Which guy? The bald guy or the Asian
guy.
Commander?
The
bald guy.
Yeah.
He's from A New Hope, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. That is one of Tarkin's. I think you see him in the conference room with the big ball in A New Hope with Vader and stuff. But I thought the voice actor here did an excellent job. I think the voice acting throughout this entire season has been very colorful and well cast. And we've made comments about that in our past episodes. They're talking about this. Tarkin then questions Hemlock about the project in the Advanced Science Division with cloning. Hemlock claims that their cloning advances are of interest to Emperor Palpatine. Cool mention here. He's trying to unlock Kaminoan secrets to create an enlightened society using their advanced technology and molecular alteration. Tarkin is asking how long it will take. There's a lot of funding. Hemlock says science cannot be rushed, and he found a new purpose for decommissioned clone troopers, whom he describes as test subjects. So I was correct in our theory last week of that he's running tests on them. Evil dude, kind of a diabolical plan here to just run your tests on these clones. But also interesting because this is kind of, it feels like they're just really scrambling to fix the sequels.
Yeah, it feels like
seeing
damage
that
control.
in both Mandalorian and in this show now too. We're getting mentions. I thought this was really well done though, really interestingly tied in. The dialogue here is great. You have to be paying a little bit of attention to get those little mentions of the Kaminoan cloning secrets, Emperor Palpatine and the clones and stuff. Like, this is the kind of nuanced dialogue I'm looking for in Mandalorian, you know? This scene I really liked with the clone commanders.
I think it was really well considered too. It felt like somebody sat down and was like, we're going to put a lot of thoughtful dialogue into this and how it would play into the Emperor's planning and how the Empire would come together to make a plan after the fall of the Republic and subsequently also like the clones. Like, how do we manage to get them under control? What's their purpose? So you could really tell that somebody put thought into this. Like, it wasn't just like a half-assed conversation. It's like, this feels pretty real. Like, this is a conversation that these men in this horrific empire would actually talk to each other, formulating a plan. So I just thought it was really well considered and very well executed.
I agree. They're saying, how are we going to do this? Have the clones consented? He's like, hey, they're just they're Imperial property. Doesn't really even view them as people. They're saying, well, the Senate's fighting for clone rights, and the secret experiments could hurt their cause. And the news of these secret experiments could hurt their cause. He's saying this is going to be done in secret, kind of thing. Tarkin counters and that he says he found clones to be unpredictable and criticizes the Jedi for a concerning level of individuality. I thought this was interesting as well. All this stuff.
Yeah, great dialogue.
Hemlock acknowledges that some already have taken up arms against the Empire because Tarkin mentions Cobra and ask what will happen if the clones learn what's happening. So I think maybe the clone uprising thing is they're kind of setting that up for season 3. It sounds like. I know we thought that was going to happen this season, but I think next season is really they're setting up the clone uprising.
I think there's a lot of groundwork this season that was done, particularly with Rex and that mid-season finale where you see a lot of unrest in the Senate, and then you see Senator Chuchi really trying to advocate for these men. Yeah, Senator Chuchi. And I think Rex is kind of building up this clone army in a sense where they will try to fight back, but I think honestly they're going to fight back and lose pretty bad. If we do see that. It's not going to be this great thing, and I think that will play into Rex's character arc of why he chooses to go retire for the next 15 years. Like, something happened that made Rex be like, I cannot do this anymore. Yeah. And we have to put down
what it is.
Put down our guns and just call it a day. And honestly, I could see something being like that, like happening to Echo, where that kind of just pushes Rex over the edge and he's like, I can't lose anybody else. And we need to just take what we have and hide. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how they bring that back. But to go back to your original point, I do think that all this cloning stuff, like, it is super, super interesting, but it's also disappointing to me because it's like, this is just damage control for the sequels. And like, had the sequels not existed and this was like a cloning story that had just existed, I would be a little bit more excited to see, because I think that they would have taken it in a different direction. Like, I don't think it would have initially ended with all roads pointing to Palpatine and cloning himself, but it's obvious that they're trying to do damage control. And so with that in mind, I'm like a little disappointed because I'm like, we all know where this leads, because the story that they came up with in the sequels was just stupid and it wasn't a good idea. But at the same time, it's like, this stuff is interesting. I just think I would find it more interesting if it wasn't pointing back to the sequels.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. They talk about the clone uprisings. Tarkin says the Empire will take swift and unilateral action. And then he asks Commander Krennic. We get a nice little cameo from Krennic here, which I thought was awesome, to talk about Project Stardust. Again, creative writing here. Good stuff. They've tied in Rogue One now. They're trying to tie in the sequels a little bit. Obviously, we have the connective tissue between A New Hope and all that with Tarkin and these guys. So this is where the show is excelling for me. It's just going out and connecting lots of different Star Wars stuff together in subtle ways, and it just feels very Star Warsy.
Yeah, it's filling the gap.
I thought in general, that's what this show's been good at. This is what it was good at for the first season. This episode, the finale to me was like just very Star Warsy in general, and that's always a good thing. Obviously,
yeah, it hit all the right vibes. And it feels like if you have a needle and thread and you're tying the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy and then like a new, like you're putting the needle through and you're making it tighter and tighter. And I agree with you. I think that these last 2 seasons have done a really great job of that. And especially at like the end when they say, when Tarkin says, Krennic, update us on the status of Project Stardust, they even play the motif from Rogue One, which I thought was awesome. And like they threw it in there. They didn't complete the motif, but they threw enough in there, and I just thought that was really nice.
Yeah.
So it's great that they're being so inclusive of all these elements.
Definitely. We switch scenes. Bad Batch is in the hangar bay. They're trying to Echo needs to access the manifest from the control room. Omega and Wrecker are like trying to find Hemlock's shuttle. Omega gets down there. She's evading Stormtroopers, trying to plant the beacon. It's an interesting scene here. Echo creates a distraction, and the Stormtroopers are just, I don't know, pushing boxes around for some reason down there. She's detected by a mouse droid, but Wrecker smashes the droid. Meanwhile, we see Hunter and Tech. They have deactivated a quadrant of... They've discovered another deactivated quadrant of the surveillance system, and then they discover a thermal explosive and realize that someone else is there. And then we are then surprised to find no other than Saw Gerrera show up, disguised as a Stormtrooper. It's him. He is a terrorist, I guess, a domestic...
Yeah, low-key.
Intergalactic terrorist. What do they call him? An extremist?
An extremist.
Yeah, but he's kind of a terrorist. Looking tall as ever. He's like towering over Hunter in this scene. I don't know if you noticed that. He's so tall, and he has those, like, you get lost in his deep blue eyes.
Yeah, and his perfect hair and his perfect skin.
Perfect hair.
Gorgeous hung Saw Gerrera is what you called him. Gorgeous hung Saw
gorgeous hung Saw Gerrera. Hunter's like, sorry, we can't let you do that. And then Saw's like, you let me? I'm doing it, bro. I'm blowing this place up. I just love
that Saw Gerrera conveniently shows up. If I had a beef with this episode, I'm like, of freaking course. Because Saw Gerrera just shows up to screw everything else over for the main characters later. And honestly, the only reason he was in this episode was to cause the massive tragic thing that happens in the following scene. That was his only purpose, because ultimately that is his fault.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of questioning why he was even here in the first place. Like, if I'm being honest, it didn't feel supernatural to have him in here for any reason, especially upon my second watch. I'm like, the only purpose this guy had in this specific episode is to cause the tragic thing that happens later. And so I don't know if they necessarily did that to the best of their ability. And he was literally just there to screw things up. So I'm not like 100% sold on how they did this. I mean, it was cool to see him, but he's notorious now. Like, whenever he shows up, you're like, great, he's here and he's going to screw something over for the main character.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, he is a interesting character, but he's a dick. I don't know that I like him as he's kind of a jerk. He's a jerk in Rogue One, kind of too.
Dude, he's a jerk in Rebels.
He's kind of a jerk in Andor. Remember, he was in Andor.
Yeah.
I don't know about Rebels because I haven't seen it the whole way through. He's a dick. Yeah, he's a dick in Clone Wars. He's a dick in this. He just screws everything up.
I mean, and I don't know. How do you feel about his role here? I mean, we can talk about it in relation to the scene later that's coming up, but like, I don't know. Did you feel it was kind of out of left field?
Kind of, but that's kind of how he is. He's kind of a loose cannon. It makes sense that he's there. He also has been tracking them down. He just has different motives. So I get it. It's not that hard for me to suspend my disbelief of seeing him there. I mean, look, they had to have something like that happen. I don't know if it's 100% necessary. They could have done it some other way. I mean, you could have achieved the exact same impact
result
without having him there. But I don't have a problem with it necessarily. I think it's still fine.
Yeah, I'm not mad about it. I'm just kind of like, did we really need this?
Yeah, well, you were probably right. We probably didn't 100% need it. Their cover gets blown, even though they're pleading with him not to do this, and he's like, I'm doing it, bro. So we already start getting some foreshadowing here that things are not going to go well. The chick he's with gets shot. They're trying to help her out. We
get that awesome camera shot of Hunter and Tech where the camera stays on them as they go into the hallway and start shooting up those stormtroopers.
Yep, cool.
Great camera direction there.
The lieutenant informs Tarkin and that the other Imperials, that the insurgents have infiltrated the compound. He acts quickly here. He's like, switch all channels to encoded and find them, kill them. They sneak past the stormtroopers. Hunter and Tech are chased by multiple stormtroopers. They are joined by Echo, Wrecker, and Omega. They take up their position inside a rail car while Tech overrides the manual controls. They start riding outside of the compound. A battery cannon tries to shoot their shuttle down, but it's unsuccessful. Gerrera, as he has escaped, they got back to the hangar, and they were able to escape. And as he's flying out, just blasts everything to pieces, screws up the whole plan. Luckily, the chamber that Tarkin's in is protected, but it causes the rail line to lose power. The rail car stops in midair. A second rail car hangs on the other side, and the heroes remark that this is going to be a problem. End of first episode.
Yeah. The one thing I do want to mention that I didn't mention in the first part of this is one of the commanders at the Asian commander. I think I forgot to bring up. I cannot remember his name for the life of me, but he appeared more than once in the Clone Wars. I cannot remember that guy's name for the life of me, and I don't know why it's escaping me, but I recognized him immediately. And he is also played by D. Bradley Baker.
Oh, yeah, you could totally tell too.
Yeah,
but it was still like impressive. Like you can hear that D. Bradley Baker like timbre of his voice, but it's still like I'm like, how does he do that? Because he sounds like an older dude. It's like, it's crazy.
He's crazy, man. He's just a phenomenal voice actor in general, but like in this episode in particular, he was doing stuff with his voice where I was like, this is just a really talented human being. Yeah. I mean, to fluctuate your voice like that and come up with like, I don't know, 6, 7, 80,000 different characters that he's played in the Clone Wars and a million other shows that is not an easy feat. No. And so to just see him constantly elevate the bar with the quality of his voice acting is
really good.
Pretty darn phenomenal. But that commander stood out to me. I can't remember his name. Nobody kill me. Let me know what you guys think his name is in the comments. If you actually know, that'd be super nifty. But it was cool to see him. Just those little tie-ins matter so much.
They are. Yeah, I agree. Second episode begins. The Bad Batch is preparing to jump out of the stolen rail car. They're in a bad situation. All right. Hunter has to go to restart the rail, but the explosions have knocked out the power. Tech offers to reboot the system, but says he will need to connect one of the terminals on the track. Hunter asks the other clones to provide fire while they access the terminal at the top. Immediately when this happens, you start going,
oh no. Yeah.
Not great. Tech reaches the top and accesses the control panel. Great action sequences here. Back at the compound, Governor Will Huff Tarkin. Don't forget that his first name's Will Huff. Hilarious. 6 detonations have been confirmed. He says they're holed up on the rail line. He says send out air support to take them out. And they're like, well, what about friendly fire? And he's like, I don't care.
Tarkin is a badass.
He doesn't care.
He's so ruthless, but he's so badass. And the voice acting from Steven Stanton, I just love how he rolls his R's in that character.
Rolls his R's.
Yes, it's so perfect. I can't even do it, so I won't even try.
We'll deal with the rebels later.
Yeah. It's so perfect, man.
So they are like, yeah, we'll go shoot him down. The starfighters start heading towards the rail line. They're like, hurry up, Tech. Very intense scene here. They start shooting at them.
Also very well directed.
Very well directed, yeah.
Like when the fighters are shooting at Tech, when Tech's running across the monorail, I just like the camera shots, like it just feels like you take all the best aspects of like live action camera direction and then you apply it onto this show. It's so great. It just elevates the quality so much.
I agree, yeah. It's this was just very Star Warsy in terms of its tension and the way it was shot. So I agree with you. Tech manages to reach the carriage. The V-wing manages to damage the rear carriage, causing it to hang loose. Tech falls out, but uses grappling cable to hold onto the dangling carriage. Now we're all kind of sitting here feeling like, oops.
Oh shit. Yeah.
Like in my head, I'm going, Melissa was right. Damn it, she was right.
I didn't want to be.
Well, you were. Tech attempts to climb up at the Stormtrooper station in the opposite rail car, shoot at the carriage. Due to the damage, the Bad Batch's carriage begins to rip. As more V-Wings approach, Tech implores the rest of the Bad Batch to sever the connection hinge now. Wrecker will not do it, but Tech proceeds with Plan 99 is what he calls it, as the carriage falls apart. He says, great line here, very sad, when have we ever followed orders before shooting the hinge connecting the carriages? And
pretty good way to go out, man.
He falls to the surface. Now, sad moment.
There's a lot to unpack here.
A lot to unpack here. Music, stellar in this scene.
Unbelievable music.
Very good, yeah. Yeah,
and it really played into the impact of this scene because the second he falls and that motif kicks in, I almost cried. Like it got to me, like I was in such disbelief, like it's like, oh my gosh, like what's happening? Is this character actually gonna die? But the second that music kicked in, it's like emotionally, like you really feel it pulling at your heartstrings, and it really reminded me of a certain character's death in Star Wars Rebels. And a lot of those emotions that were evoked when I watched that character death in Star Wars Rebels came back here.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, oof, they really got you. And the Kiner brothers just have nailed that perfect blend of their own original take of music, but making it very Star Wars-y. And they've just created something so magical. And it's like everything else with the quality of this show, it's just elevated more and more and more. And when you get to this pivotal moment, it's that much more of a dramatic and impactful thing because the music swells and it grabs onto you and it just won't let go.
It was really good. The direction here, the suspense they build, I think, as well, another strong suit. The dialogue was well written. A little tropey, but I you know what? Sometimes that's what you need for something like this. It wasn't totally expected either. Like, you kind of felt it as it was coming, but it was still a little bit of a surprise, the overall decision. Now,
it was also very much a will they, won't they.
Mm-hmm. Now, it also brings up a question and we can talk about this later on in the episode, does he actually die? I don't see his circumstance, how you would survive a fall like that. However, Star Wars is notorious for bringing people back from the dead. So I don't know how you'd survive a fall like that. I was also getting like sweaty palms, like just thinking about being that high up because I hate heights.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
I have a lot of conflicting emotions on this. Actually, I mean, there's a lot of evidence to support the fact that he might have lived, but there's also a lot of evidence to support the fact that it's indeed a final death. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest points towards the final death is Plan 99, which is obviously based on Clone 99, the defective clone that we saw in, I believe it was season 2 of Clone Wars. He died, 99 died trying to help his brothers. And so it makes sense that the Bad Batch have Plan 99 as the last resort, is if your comrades are in danger, like sacrifice yourself so that they can get away. Like that's the main notion behind the plan, is I'm going to put their safety above my own needs, and I'll give my life to make sure that they get there. And so coming from that perspective, it does come off as a final death, and a very prominent and a very, what I think is a beautiful one. Like I think with his final line, with Wrecker being like, don't you do it, Tech being like, when have we ever followed orders? And then doesn't hesitate and shoots it and just dies. I think that's like a really noble character death, and I think it works emotionally.
Yeah.
At the same time, to play devil's advocate to myself, I'm surprised that they did this here. Because we're in season 2. Obviously, they were giving a lot of development to Tech throughout the season, and that made me very suspicious because I'm like, okay, are they doing this because they sidelined him in season 1, or is there a bigger reason behind this? So the fact that, like, if he is dead, it does kind of feel early, and it feels like this is something that they could have saved for season 3. Not to say that I don't think the moment still works here, but it does feel like it could have been something that they could have done in season 3 and had it been a final thing. As we get further into the episode, there's a lot of dialogue from Hemlock that could lead me to believe that Tech would still be alive. And if he was alive, Hemlock could take him and experiment on him, because Tech has a mutation that's very valuable to the Empire that could be exploited, and that Hemlock would find valuable, because as we know later in the episode, he mysteriously got a hold of Tech's broken glasses. Yeah. And that, to me, really just set my alarm off. I was like, what? The fact that he had those, that could be tying into a whole lot of things this season, especially because Hemlock's like, yeah, I use them for experiments to see if, like, what I'm doing is actually working. And Tech would be a good asset to that. So, to play off that, what you just said, like, Star Wars is notorious for killing characters and then bringing them back. And so I can't trust this death, because they've trained us to expect resurrections on a daily basis now. I mean, they already did this with Echo once. They did it with Darth Maul. God forbid they did it with Palpatine.
Yeah.
And I could easily see Tech just being another notch in that belt. So in a way, I feel like the writers have kind of cornered themselves into a box here. I think the death works as a death, but I also see
Unless
a lot of
they bring
evidence
him
for
back.
him. Yeah, and if they bring him back, that's going to cheapen the weight of the finale. It's going to cheapen the finale. So I'm in a weird boat with it at the moment.
Yeah.
I don't know how to feel.
Well, I think for now let's pretend it's final. But
well, what do you think?
There's a lot of. I was just gonna say I agree with you. I think there's evidence to support both. And again, I said there's not surprising they brought back people in the past, so I wouldn't be surprised if they did that again. I agree with you with the goggles thing. You and I texted about this. I'm like, he has motivation to make Hunter and Wrecker believe that he's dead, because then it's more impactful, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But then how did he get his glasses? Maybe they found him somehow. I don't know. Did he have a jetpack or something? I don't know, dude. Like,
also, falling from this height with that car right in front of him, that would have crushed him immediately.
Right. So for me, I'm like, this is way more impactful if you just leave it alone. So I'm going to pretend like that's the case. So I think he should be gone forever, but I wouldn't be surprised if they brought him back in some ridiculous way, or maybe they found his body and they clone him again or something, or I don't know. There's a billion.
That was a theory that went around that I could find really believable. A lot of people are joking right now that they're going to Winter Soldier tech.
They could.
Like, it is a Bucky Barnes-esque death. That is like almost, isn't that like the exact way that Bucky Barnes dies? Doesn't he fall off like a train or something?
I don't remember how
I haven't seen the Winter Soldier in so long, but I'm pretty sure this is like the exact manner in which Bucky Barnes dies.
All right, I guess he kind of does.
Right? He falls off and then he comes back later and he's Dude, literally, this could be like Hemlock being that evil scientist from the Winter Soldier. You know how they drag Bucky's body away and it's like from Bucky's point of view and he's like all blurred out? They could totally Bucky Barnes tech.
Let me see.
But maybe Tech dies and then they clone Tech.
Is this his death scene?
Yeah. Dude, that's literally... that is shot for shot.
Yeah.
And yet somehow Bucky survived that?
Somehow Palpatine returned, though, too. So,
dude, that's what I'm saying is it works as a final death, but with Star Wars being Star Wars, they are teaching us don't take death seriously in Star Wars because it doesn't have any consequences. So from that end, I'm like, you should probably just keep him dead. At the same time, I did develop an attachment to Tech, and I'm like, darn. You know, as a lot of fans did. So, I mean, maybe he was just built up this season just to die, but...
I think so. That was definitely part of it. You and I started getting suspicious a couple episodes ago, but I think it was well done. Look, he was a good character, and it's definitely an emotional scene. The music definitely plays into it, the build up to the actual death happening. It adds stakes to the show now. Like, it means they don't have plot armor. You know what I mean? Like, that's why these things are important to have in the show. So I think it's kind of necessary. It's a bummer, but like, it's good storytelling. It makes it feel more real and like you care about the actual main characters now, because it's like, oh shit,
if they keep
they're not
him
infallible dead. Right. So Tech sacrifice allows the car to speed up. Their out of control rail car crashes into the next station. Hunter orders the Bad Batch to jump out. We're looking at it through the perspective of Omega here, as she finds herself amidst the wreckage of the rail car, getting picked up by them and fought back to the Marauder.
Real quick call out, super quick. I like that the Kiner brothers played a motif of Tech's sacrifice, but a piano version in this scene. When she stands up for the first time and she tries to start looking for him, they play that sacrifice music, but it's much more slow and it's much more drawn out as a piano version. And again, like, it really got me. Like, I almost cried.
Yeah.
Where it's like, but I don't know if I should cry because I don't know if this death is final or whatnot. But it really did work. I think the way that they played it out.
Kind of reminded me of Lord of the Rings after Gandalf dies. Fly, you fools.
Fly, you fool.
And then it's like, like, that's the music they're playing. I don't know. It's also like Frodo. It's all slow motion. Frodo's like crying, and so is I kind of it just reminded me of that.
The POV shot was great. I love it when they do that.
Yeah, it was good. They said they were planning to evacuate her to Ord Mantell, where AZ can treat her. You know, his full name is AZI 3452118962464987213447. Did you know that?
I think he said that to Fives in the Clone Wars arc, where he's like, I am AZ5432. No, yeah. I don't know. I'm pretty sure he did that.
That's his full name. Fun trivia. Omega awakes to find Hunter by her bedside. She's attended to by AZ. He said, Hunter says they sustained multiple injuries, but will make. Oh, I'm sorry. AZ says the clone sustained multiple injuries, but will make a full recovery. Wrecker's wearing a brace around his neck like he just got in a car accident. Hugs Omega, tells him not to scare him like that again. Omega remembers the Rayalek car accident, but doesn't remember the whole thing. And Hunter has to remind her that Tech did not make it. Omega can't accept this. But not Tick. Not Tick. We have to go big.
Not Tick.
We have to go big for Tick. And she breaks down into tears. They allow Hunter to spend some time alone with Omega. Hunter comforts her, telling her Tech made a sacrifice for the rest of the squad, and they are not going to waste it.
Weird piece of dialogue there.
He tells her the galaxy has changed, and he thinks that he and Wrecker think that Pabu could be a good place to live a new life for themselves. He asks Omega if this is something she wants, and she smiles, and they decide this is something they're going to do. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
This is weird to me. Because in the beginning of the episode, Tech is the one to be very vocal about the fact that they should go back for Crosshair. And Omega is too. Where Tech's like, look, hey, I know we haven't always agreed, but if he defected, we should go get him. And I understand Hunter's apprehension towards that because Crosshair's literally like, he's been trying to kill us and capture us. So I don't know why we would do this. So I can understand that from a character point of view. But at the same time, right after... Like, they do this mission to get information on where Crosshair is, right? And then they get to this point where the second that Tech dies, it's like all cards are off the table in regard to Crosshair, which I guess is understandable because it's like you lose one of your own, you're going to be less inclined to want to go do the thing that you initially set out to do. But I thought it was weird that Hunter was like, we're going to honor Tech's sacrifice by moving back to Pabu.
Yeah, I agree. It was weird. He's like, we're not going to waste it. And then he's like, let's move to Pabu. You know,
so I thought that was a really strange bit of dialogue. Not that I don't understand Hunter, but I just thought it was like weird from a leadership standpoint, given the fact that he's supposed to be the leader of this group, but he doesn't necessarily seem to be like a great leader. In fact, I would argue that Hunter has kind of been a bland character this season.
They haven't done much with him, no. You're right.
And the only person he seems to really care about is Omega, which I guess makes sense because she's the youngest and she's a child. And his protective dad instincts are kicking in. But does he really have a character other than just protective dad instinct?
Not so much this season, I would say. It's been very much shared between a lot of them. Like the focus of each episode.
I mean, do you find yourself interested in Hunter?
Yeah, I think he's one of the coolest ones. I just don't think they've focused on him enough. I do think he has some great scenes coming up here, actually. So we're at Sid's parlor. She's serving Wrecker. By the way, Sid, get out of my face. We know what you're about to do. Disgust me.
I wish that they almost never hinted towards her betrayal because then it would have been much more interesting. But because they hinted at it at like the third episode of the season,
well,
we kept waiting for it.
They did it a million times. They played up to it too much. You're right. They should have just said that one time, maybe, and then I don't know, maybe not.
I don't think they should have mentioned it at all. I think that they could have built the audience's suspicions, not so much by dropping hints, but just in her dialogue towards them without directly saying like, oh, watch your back, Sid's going to betray you. Because now that they've done that, they kind of faked us out the like 6-7 episodes later where we kept expecting the betrayal. And I think it would have been a lot stronger had they not had another character warn the batch. Had they just... dropped very, very quiet, subtle hints that the audience would have to pick up on. And then when she does betray them, you're like, oh, shit, she actually backstabbed them. But we were waiting for it, so I don't think it was as impactful.
Yeah, that's true. We knew it was going to happen the second you see her.
But we kept waiting for it.
She offers Wrecker a free drink. She said she feels sorry for Goggles, saying that she liked him. Aboard the Marauder, Gonki alerts Echo to the arrival of an Imperial Venator-class Star Destroyer. And we already know what's happening. He tries to contact the rest of the Bad Batch, but finds their comms have been jammed. Back at Sid's parlor, Sid tells Wrecker that she betrayed them to the... Well, she doesn't really say that. She's just as being very coy and annoying. And we hate her, and she's being a bitch. Several clone commanders enter the parlor and start shooting at Wrecker. He charges at them. Hunter and Omega hear the shouts. Clone commandos reach the door, but Hunter shoots the door controls shut. Classic Star Wars here. Just shooting control panels, closes the doors.
Yeah, closing doors.
It's hilarious. He tells Omega to take the underground mining tunnels to the spaceport to find Echo while he gets Wrecker. Omega says that Hunter's injured and in no state to fight, but Hunter says that she and AZ need to go. It's an order. She's climbing down, and then she's like, I can't lose them too. I have to go save them. And I'm like, you stupid idiot. Just get out of there and you can figure out your plan later. But she's too headstrong. Inside the parlor, I love this scene. Hunter blasts out, right? Those clone commandos are trying to get in. He blasts out of here, kills them. And then, like, just the animation here I thought was really cool. It looked very human-like as has his gun and he walks into the parlor. Mm-hmm. And he runs into Dr. Hemlock and his clone commanders, who he sees have already captured Wrecker. Hemlock tells him that they are outnumbered and thanks Sid for her assistance before ordering her to leave. I thought this was funny. Sid's just hanging around as they're getting arrested, and he's like, thank you for your service to the Empire. And just gives her money. How much do you think she got paid?
I don't know. Enough to keep her quiet, but not quite enough to the point where it was worth what she
didn't
actually
look like
did.
that many credits. I mean, I don't know the types of currency credits come
50,000 credits, maybe.
Didn't look like that much. It was like a tiny little briefcase.
20,000.
That big. I mean, yeah, it didn't look like she.
It depends on how much the Bad Batch is worth. I mean, I don't think the Empire would actually pay her what the Bad Batch is actually worth. I just think that they'd give her enough to shut her up.
Yeah.
Let's stick with 20,000.
That's low, though, dude.
Yeah, but would the Empire actually, like, give her, like, a substantial amount? I mean, it is the Empire.
I think they would for a valuable enough target. They don't really care.
1.2 million.
No, not even close to that much, dude. I think you're right. It's probably like 50 or something.
50,000.
Not very much, dude. It doesn't seem like very much. And then she's just looking like a sad puppy.
She just walked into the frame to give a sad expression and then walk out.
And I'm just like, you bitch.
I thought it was a bit of a disappointing betrayal, you know, where it would have like they'd have
built up to it, and then it was just kind of like, oh,
like
okay.
You know, I wish it was more of a moment where Hunter had a bit of dialogue with her. Like,
well,
how could you do that?
Why did they? I didn't know that they went back there. Why did they go back there even? I thought they didn't like her. Like, I don't know.
They don't like her.
I feel like it would have been more impactful if they were somewhere else and she knew where they were. And then they're like, how'd they find us here? And then they put the...
It was predictable. I mean, they used the plot point of them needing to get Omega back to AZ, but there have to be other medical stations that they could have gone to. So it would have been great if, you know, Sid had made them think that she didn't know how to find them, but she had a tracking device on the Marauder the entire time.
Yeah.
I don't think the betrayal was as well done as they could have made it. I don't think it was as interesting as they could have made it. It is kind of a major plot point, though. And I think that they could have made it maybe a bit more impactful instead of hinting at it so early in the season that they fake us out every episode thinking that this is going to be the episode that Sid betrays them, and then they save it until the very end. So it didn't really hit, I think, in the way it could have.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was fine. I mean, it worked, but just wasn't as much impact as it could have been. Just, blah, blah, blah. Oh, Sid walks away, and we see Omega and AZ climb through the ventilation shaft. Hemlock offers to spare Hunter and Wrecker's lives if they surrender Omega. Holding his blaster pistol, Hunter refuses to surrender her, says she's long gone. Hemlock is curious about his paternal instincts as a clone. Before talking about the passing of Tech, he throws over the goggles as a gift before talking about the psychological impact of Tech's death on Hunter. He says that he will order his clone commanders to execute Wrecker if he doesn't lower his gun. This is the dialogue that we were talking about. You know, how does Hemlock have the goggles? He went down to go find the body. I don't even know how he knew that happened. You know, it's just kind of weird. And then he grabs the goggles. He obviously has motivation for Hunter to believe that Tech is dead because it's going to give him more leverage in this current moment, when in reality maybe he's not. I don't know. It's weird. But if it's not, if it is just him with the goggles and he just found his mangled dead body, then that's kind of sad.
The biggest point being that you just brought up is, how did he know that Tech died? I mean, unless one of the Stormtroopers saw it and reported it. You know, that would be the only reason. At the same time, it's like Tech fell in the middle of that monorail thing. Like, it was like smack in the middle and then falling. Like, I have to imagine it would take a really long time to find a body or any other parts associated with it. So
Yeah.
this is weird to me, because the fact that Hemlock is using it is, this is so in Hemlock's character to use the goggles to get to them, to emotionally manipulate the Bad Batch. That's something that he would do. And given that this is the guy that tests on clones who could easily use tech for any number of experiments in the future, it just set off a red flag with me, which made me really, really, really suspicious.
Yeah.
And it could also point to tech survival. The other thing I didn't the other thing I didn't point out is tech is supposed to, so the reason the Bad Batch get out of most situations in this show is because of tech. Like, his mutation is that he is wildly intelligent. He can, like, he says in the first season, I have an exceptional mind, and like, that is his strength. And so it is also possible that Tech is just that brilliant that he could have concocted some kind of plan to survive that fall, given the fact that he is the smartest of the Bad Batch. So there is that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not, like, I'm so on the fence with this, because I'm like, if you bring this character back, you are undermining everything in the finale. The reason this finale works is because Tech was killed. And if you undo that, this finale is no longer special. It doesn't have impact. It doesn't have weight. It doesn't have, like, that emotional vulnerability of the Bad Batch. And so I just feel weird about the thing as a whole. But
I do too. I think I'm hoping that it's final. It is also difficult because he is so integral to the team.
Yeah.
If you killed Echo, for example, it's like,
does that impact them? No.
Not as much as Tech. Like, Tech, he does get him out of a lot of situations. He's really smart. You know, he has this little data pad that he's constantly getting him help with. But yeah, I agree with you.
I mean, do you think that there's that chance there? Do you see that coming back in season 3?
I hope not. But I see it as a possibility, yeah.
Yeah.
A clone commando, Omega watches from above as a clone commando reports that Omega was not found in Sid's office. Hunter claims she's long gone, and Hemlock says we will see. Omega and AZ reach the top of Sid's parlor. They're trying to find Echo. The Hemlock is leading his troops and prisoners through the streets of Ord Mantell. And Omega does something really stupid, just starts firing her energy bow at the convoy. Hemlock tells his clone commanders to lower their weapons before addressing Omega. Omega wants them to release Hunter and Wrecker. I don't know how she was expecting this to go, but like,
I mean, she's a child. She's going to make stupid, emotionally charged decisions.
Hemlock proposes a trade. If she surrenders, he promises to spare her friends. Hemlock says that Nala Se needs her help. Hunter counters that they're lying and that the Empire killed the Kaminoans, but Hemlock's actually telling the truth here, and he's like, no, she's alive. Don't worry. She's being well cared for, which he's actually not making that up. He needs her. Omega rejects his offer. Hunter tries to warn her, but she is stunned by Scorch. He sneaks up behind her. Hemlock orders his troops to search the city for the third clone, Echo, and bring him back to Tarkin so they can interrogate them. AZ finds Echo and tells him that the Imperial troopers are everywhere. Echo hijacks a whatever that thing is called. I don't remember the name.
AT-AC. Yeah, I don't know what the brand is.
No. Yeah, it's a Honda Accord. They attacking Hemlock's forces with this. Hunter and Wrecker take advantage of the chaos and break free. This was an interesting scene. Echo and AZ are forced to flee the wrecked transport. They reunite with Hunter and Wrecker, and they try to stop the shuttle from leaving. They engage in a gunfight with the Imperial forces, but are unable to stop Hemlock leaving in the shuttle with Omega. They stop. They escape, or they manage to make it back to the Marauder and travel through space, and they are trying to figure out a way to track down Hemlock's ship. It's not looking good, but Hunter resolves to rescue Omega and not stop searching until they do. Good scene here. I thought the action sequences were great. Animation was really, really good. And the way it all went down was a little surprising. I thought they were going to have everyone captured by the end of it, but I like how they got away, and then they ended up getting Omega. That sets up season 3 pretty nicely, I think. So I thought that was cool. Hemlock's shuttle goes to the Wayland facility in Montantis with Omega. They're greeted by clone commandos, Nala Se. He says to bring Omega for medical treatment, and then he's speaking with Nala Se. Interesting moment here where he says, he's reminding her of her attachment to Omega and asks her to reconsider working for the Emperor's project. So she's refusing to work on this thing, and they really want her help with it. And they're bringing Omega as like a, hey,
do it, or she will suffer the consequences.
Nala Se responds, what she seeks is not possible. Interesting line here. What does he seek? We don't know. Probably Jedi cloning, I'm guessing. Hemlock tells her to make it possible or she will suffer. We see Omega come into this cloning area. Really cool scene here where she sees several humanoid shapes in storage tanks, and she recognizes Crosshair, who is recovering from probably a really brutal hangover from the night before. We see, what's her name, Carr, come in and starts talking to her, and she's like, what'd you do to Crosshair? And then he's like, well, I tried to warn you about the consequences of not helping out Dr. Haircut. And Omega's like, I want to speak with Nala Se. Carr says, I think it's ironic that you trust the Kaminoans, but not me. And Omega's like, I don't know who you are, obviously. And then Carr reveals that her and Omega are sisters. Dun, dun, dun. By the way, I was so right. I called this 3 episodes ago. I'm the smartest. I was like, they sound similar. They sound so similar. In my reaction video, I wonder if there's a connection there. I believe is verbatim what I said, and I was right. There was. Crazy twist, although not really. This
I didn't really find this shocking. I was like,
no, I didn't either. I was like, this is kind of exactly what they did last season too, where they're like, Boba Fett's your brother.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, yeah. But then they're like, all right, you did the same kind of reveal, except for it's just the girl version.
Yeah, I didn't really find this shocking. I was kind of like, what? Like at the end, I was like, what's her name? Amiri Carr? Is that her name?
Yeah.
Okay, so this character, is she in... There's a lot of questions I have here, and obviously this is meant to set up the 3rd season, but she looks more like Amiri looks more like a traditional clone. She looks a little bit more like she was Jango Fett as opposed to Omega. Omega looks like something totally new because she has the blonde hair. Obviously, like, she has the same skin tone, but Omega looks relatively different from the rest of the clones, whereas Amiri looks a little bit more accurate, and we don't have a lot of information on her. But the first thing I thought of when we had that reveal after I watched the episode a second time is I was like, oh my gosh, is Amiri going to be like... Is she going to be like the character that replaces Tech?
Oh, interesting.
You know?
I didn't think about that.
Because they set her up at the end. Is like, okay, now you have a new character with more intrigue and interest. And obviously we don't know a whole lot about Amiri or how she was created or how old she is or how much original DNA she has or who even created her. But one of the first things that came to my mind is like, okay, if Tech's really dead, could this be the replacement character?
I guess, yeah, I didn't really think about that. But that's an interesting theory for sure. Could be. They're definitely setting her up to be more of a character in the show for season 3, I think.
Also, it's really weird. If she is a clone, because it's obvious that she is, why is she helping Dr. Hemlock torture them?
I don't know. There's a lot of questions about her.
Where it's like, interesting, or is she? I don't know. Her age is confusing. Like when does she have accelerated aging? It doesn't look like she has accelerated aging. Did she have accelerated aging that they then stopped? There's a lot of curiosity.
A lot of questions to be asked now of like, okay, why is she with him? When did she get made? All that stuff.
Also, really weird place to end the season, I felt like.
I'm of two minds about it. I think it wasn't too much of a cliffhanger. I was going to be really pissed if they captured everybody, you know? And then I'm like, all right. But no, then it's like, all right, their plot point for season 3 is saving Omega. Okay, great. Unless they decide to do Tales of the Jedi or something like Book of Boba Fett and then have 2 episodes where they get Omega back and then they go to season like they do what Mandalorian did.
You know what? This is actually going to happen in The Mandalorian in a flashback.
Yeah.
And then
and it just ruins the whole plot line for season.
And then Omega's magically back with the Bad Batch by the time season 3 rolls around.
I think it's an interesting plot point for season 3. They definitely left some questions. This is kind of my issue with this season as a whole is like they waited till the very end to cram a bunch of stuff in. You know, I thought these last 2 episodes were really good and it was chock full of great Star Wars content, but it's like, why did you wait till the last 2 episodes to do that? And like one of our viewer comments I read at the beginning of the show was like, it was amazing and proved that the filler episodes mattered and are essential viewing on any rewatch. I disagree with that. I don't think they're essential viewing.
Yeah.
It's minuscule character development in those. And maybe a couple lines thrown here and there, but you can skip those, in my opinion. They could have put more of the stuff that was packed into this episode strewn throughout the season and done it in a more detailed way. I feel like they just crammed a lot in here that just left a lot of questions to be answered or to be asked, like the Omega sister stuff. Crosshair, he was in the episode hanging out for, like, why was he not in the season more? I don't get that. They could have had him more.
I don't get it either.
Same thing with more Dr. Hemlock throughout the season would have been great. He should have been the bad guy from episode 1. We should have seen more of him. Some of these other Imperial guys, I don't know. Scorch came in, came out, like it just felt a little fragmented. It was still a good season overall, but I agree with you. It left it in a little bit of a weird place where I'm sitting here like, why didn't you cover some of these plot points earlier in the season to make it feel more cohesive?
My problem with it is they didn't even answer any questions, you know? Like, typically at the beginning of a season, and then you get in the middle, you get a lot of questions presented, and then by the time you get to the season finale, those questions are answered and new questions are presented for the following season. I feel like a lot of people were comparing this ending to the ending of Empire Strikes Back with one major difference. Empire Strikes Back, for everything bad that happens at the end of the movie, there is still this large notion of hope that things will get better. Bad Batch Season 2 ended on kind of a bleak note. You know, Tech is killed, assumedly. Like, we think he's dead at least. Tech is killed. The Bad Batch are broken, beaten, and defeated, literally and figuratively. And Omega is taken to be possibly experimented on and used as the bait to get Nalisade to work. And Crosshair's unconscious, and he doesn't show signs of waking up. And then they just end it. And I like, you get the general direction for season 3, which is, okay, we're going to rescue Omega. But other than that, like, I don't know if it was necessarily a great finale. I think it was a great 2 episodes of Star Wars, but I don't know if I'd necessarily call it a great finale just because the way it ended. It's like, I don't really feel satisfied in any regard. And I think a season finale should satisfy you to a degree where you're like, okay, I understand this. I know where we're going. They answered these questions, but we have new questions like who a Mary Carr is or whatever, or why she even has the last name if she's a clone. Anyway, the point being is I don't know if it's necessarily a great finale.
I kind of disagree. I think it gave me satisfaction. I'm like, all right, that's a good place to end. Great place to set up season 3. Where I do agree with you is like it's not super Star Warsy in that sense where you're right. There's not that hope. It is kind of a dark note to end on. But I enjoyed it. I mean, I think it was really 2 really good episodes. I think it makes me hyped for season 3. It's confirmed, you know, there's going to be a season
obviously.
3, pretty much. So I'm like, all right, great. And I think they've done a good job. Like, they did a good job overall with the season, with developing the characters, making you care about them more. Hunter could have used a little bit more development, in my opinion, and they could have had some more cohesiveness and more Crosshair within it. But, like, overall, in terms of good Star Wars content, it delivered a good portion of that. Now, was it as good as Season 1? I don't know. I'd have to rewatch Season 1, but I don't know that I feel the same way about this one and the ending that I did about Season 1. I think Season 1 filled in a lot more blanks for me for Star Wars, and it felt more cohesive throughout. But it was still good. It's still good, and I'll watch Season 3, and I hope they'll have the same energy in season 3 that they had with these last 2 episodes. If they have that throughout the full season, it's going to be an amazing show. I just don't know that they're going to do that because they just throw in these random Gunji episodes where I'm like, okay, this doesn't really contribute that much to the overarching story. But I liked it. I mean, overall, I think it's strong Star Wars, and I think if you're a Star Wars fan, you would benefit from watching this and you would enjoy it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I
think overall for me, I'm probably for this season, I'm not quite in the 8s. I'm probably I think it's like a 7-6, like overall for the season. I think it's solid, you know, but it's not like, oh, amazing. You know, 8s to me is like really, really good. Amazing. 7s is like, that's pretty good. It's pretty above average.
Sure. I think it would have, again, with the Clone Wars format, I just see a lot of Clone Wars influence on this, and I don't think that that's appropriate for this kind of show. And I think that's where a
Yeah.
lot of the detriment came for me, where I was struggling a bit. Because with characters like this that are so focused in, when you have a main crew like this, much like the Ghost crew in Star Wars Rebels, is that does call for a more linear format of storytelling because you're sticking to the same particular set of characters each week. And I feel like with these last 4 episodes of the season, 3 episodes of the season, I don't know where the one with Mayday started, but I feel like that's where the show felt like it started for me. I feel like that's where it really felt like they were getting into the main focus of the season. And so when they ended the 2-part season finale, I kind of felt like, I really feel like we were just getting started with the season. Like, I feel like we've been kind of dancing through the first half of the season with some great episodes thrown in there, like the Solitary Clone and the mid-season finale. Like, those felt very strong and cohesive to me. Even the first 2 episodes were pretty strong. But I felt like we were just like losing focus, where it was so stop, start, as I've been saying in the last few episodes, where I found it hard to get that hook until the last 3-4 episodes. Because this 2-part finale, I was really engaged. I was really engaged with the Mayday episode. I was really engaged with the mid-season finale, but I felt like they were losing me a little bit when they did these side tangents. Because I do think that this is an awesome show. I think it fills in a lot of those gaps quite nicely, and it's really interesting to see this era of Star Wars that hasn't really been explored before. And I do really like the Bad Batch characters. Like, they feel like my friends now. Like, I could just go hang out with them, and like, we've gotten to know them quite well. It's just, I don't know if they had all those, the story and focus in on characters as I would like to have seen throughout the season. And right as I feel like they were starting to get to the stuff that I really wanted to see, that I was engaging in, they cut it off.
Yeah.
Which,
that's a really good way of saying it. Right as they were getting to like the meat and potatoes of like what we want to see, you're right. It felt like the rug kind of got ripped out from underneath you. And I agree with you. I think the main thing that I've enjoyed about this show, season 1 and 2, is this is an era of Star Wars we haven't seen. It is the connection between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, which is awesome. That's the reason I like the show, is there's these cool explanations of this, how the Stormtroopers came to be and what happened with the clones and how did Tarkin come to power and what does the Empire look like in its first stages? What are some of the issues they ran into? What does the Senate look like? Like, they're touching upon all these awesome things, but dig into that more. Like, fully commit to that idea. I don't want to. You're right. The Clone Wars format doesn't really work for a show like this. I want to see, like, there's so much you can do. So why are we wasting it on one planet for the entire time, like Pabu? Let's do a lot of, like, explore all the different plot points that you could explore with, like, the Senate stuff was awesome. Do more of that. Like, why can't we have more stuff like that? Like, treat your viewers with more respect in terms of what they can digest and what they can enjoy. And like the Imperial Summit stuff is great with the mentions of Krennic and the Emperor and the cloning and stuff happening with Omega, and like, keep that going. Start tying it all in together more often. Because it's not the Clone Wars. And so I think, I totally agree with you in that regard. But I also agree with you in the fact that I've enjoyed it a lot. And I think this was a good season, and any Star Wars fan would also probably feel similar.
I think, in general, I definitely would recommend this show. It's just, there are skippable, unnecessary things that you could walk over. Like, you don't necessarily have to have seen it. It's just, this 2-part finale, the mid-season finale and the Crosshair episodes are what make this show worth tuning into. And there's like some of my favorite Star Wars. Like, I was so engaged in this finale, and I was having so much fun watching it. And it's just like, I just wish they would stick to more of those plot threads. But as for the season as a whole, I'd probably rank it somewhere similar to you, where I would say pretty good. I would need to go back and rewatch the first season, but I think I'm a little bit more inclined towards the first season just because it was tighter and a little bit more clean with how they told the story. That being said, there are some episodes in season 2 that are some of the best Star Wars we've ever gotten, and especially for Star Wars animation, that are absolutely worth watching. I still enjoyed season 2, but now I'm thinking, like, we really need to get into the narrative of these characters and really hone in and focus and set our tone and really stick to this main crew instead of hopping around so much. And I'm just sad because, like, I almost anticipate, like, next week we're gonna get the real conclusion to the season, you know? because we have that cliffhanger. So I'm almost waiting. I think my brain's expecting that kind of resolution next week. But overall, as a season, I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun, and I'm absolutely I'm really excited for season 3. Like, I can't wait to see what they do, because there's still so much unexplored territory. And like you brought up before, Matt, the clone uprising thing, I think the roots are there now, and I think season 3 would be the place to do it. So
yeah.
I mean, overall, I really liked it.
I'm looking for I liked it too. I thought it was a good season. I think there's some skippable stuff there. It was also tough because we have Mando coming out at the same time, so these last couple episodes have been tough jumping back and forth. So I'm actually looking forward to this being done with, so we can only focus on Mando and some of the other stuff we've wanted to make. But it was a good season. I enjoyed it. I just wish they would have leaned more into that meat and potatoes, those meat and potatoes elements of the story that we didn't get as much as we would have liked, I think, especially with these last 2 episodes, stuff like that, like throughout the season, show more of that. But I think they set up season 3 pretty nicely. I'll definitely watch it. I think we'll probably see that in a year from now.
Probably like spring of next year. Yeah.
Spring of next year is what I'd guess. Yeah. Maybe summer. Who knows? Maybe they push it to 2025 because Star Wars is notorious for that.
Delays.
Delays. But I think we'll expect to see that announced for Star Wars Celebration. I think we'll get Tales of the Jedi Season 2, which would be awesome. And this is good stuff. I think it's very similar to Clone Wars, where it's like, if you want to enhance your view of the Star Wars galaxy and world, watch these episodes. They're good. The animation's great. The directing is great. Some of the episodes are some of the best Star Wars we've seen. So I hope to see some more next season.
You know what I will say about this show is I think it's probably the best written out of all the Star Wars content we've gotten recently. I would say for the lack of cohesion in the season in terms of story threads, I would say as far as writing goes for a Star Wars project, this is probably the strongest thing they have out right now. Because, Mando's kind of been like, what's going on there? Kenobi, there are some great moments in there, but again, I didn't find it to be the best told story. Andor was fine. Obviously our followers know how we feel about that. But I would have to say, like, Bad Batch for me has probably been the most cohesive. It has probably been the newest project that I've enjoyed the most out of everything. I know I've given some constructive criticism on the storytelling as a whole, but I still think it's good. It's just I think it could be elevated a little bit more. But as far as comparing it to other projects, I do think that this is the one thing that I've enjoyed the best, and I think it's stronger than what we're seeing in Mando. So,
how dare you? Andor was the best thing that's ever happened to Star Wars ever.
Oh, you're so right. I'm so sorry.
So, you idiot. How dare you? I think it's been great. It's been fun to watch. It's always a fun watch. That was the first series of this show that we did was Andor.
Bad Batch, you mean?
Bad Batch. Whoopsie. Which, by the way, that was almost exactly 2 years ago when we started the channel. So we're coming up on our 2-year anniversary. We started with Bad Batch. That was fun. This was fun too. It's kind of low pressure Star Wars where it gives us some. It's consistent writing. It's good writing. It's interesting elements of the world we haven't explored before, and it's a fun watch. So I enjoyed this season a lot. But what did you guys think, guys? Leave a note in the comments. Tell us what you guys thought of the season as a whole. Did we hit the nail on the head? Did it leave you wanting more? It seems like on our community page, which we can jump to now, people really enjoyed this episode. They didn't really give a whole lot of comments on the season as a whole, but yeah, let's jump into some viewer thoughts. What do you think?
Yeah, let's talk about what people thought. I think we got a lot of engagement on this.
Yeah, Timothy writes, I was very impressed with the whole season. 15 and 16 was an incredible and tragic ending to the season. Well said. Red Wing writes, that was absolutely heartbreaking. What an emotional roller coaster of a finale. So much to process.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I went back and I rewatched some scenes a few times because I saw the episodes all the way through twice, and then I went back and I rewatched some of my sequences that were my favorite. And the scenes that were my favorite was when the Kiner brothers brought in those musical cues that just destroyed. I mean, they crushed this season. The music has been an absolute highlight.
I agree. They've done a really, really nice job. Shout out to them. Come on our show, please. Steven wrote, it's definitely the best last 2 episodes of The Bad Batch. I give it a 9 out of 10. Seabass wrote, a worthy successor to Clone Wars. I agree with that. I think that's probably, if you're looking at it from that lens, then yeah, it is. It's a good continuation of a show that everyone really liked. Basma wrote, I want to say 10 out of 10 because those episodes and cameos are perfect, and Bad Batch finally used blaster bowls to shoot TK troopers. True. That was something I liked too. They're finally shooting them and not stunning them anymore. So thank God for that. Loved this finale, Anne writes. Do you think Omega's value lies in a process that has slowed her age considerably? If the Bats are 13 or 14 years old, could Omega be 18 or 20?
I mean, maybe that is more of a question of Amiri Carr, you know?
Yeah, I wish they would have given us some more information on her before just piecing out, but unfortunately, we did not get that.
I think Omega is the exact same age as the rest of the batch. It's just her aging is realistic. It wasn't the same as the rest of the batch. You know, she looks her actual age as opposed to the batch who have accelerated aging.
Kelatara, the Empire strikes back, and it strikes hard. Oh, that's interesting. So maybe it's supposed to be like that, but
only more depressing.
Yeah, a little bit more depressing. Shirley wrote, when have we ever followed orders? Still crying. Yeah, great line. That was sad.
That's a good last line to have, dude. When have we ever followed orders? Oh my gosh. You know what? That's going to be the next product in the shop.
Ooh, guys, so stay tuned for that. You heard it here first. We're going to have when have we ever followed orders t-shirts. Melissa will have them up within the hour. Right?
Well, not really. I gotta run to the store and pack for my vacation. Okay. I love this comment from Charles. Are we going to see Mecha Tech in season 3, aka the 6 million credit clone? Somebody knows the hosts. I've been watching episodes of the $6 Million Man, and they could totally pull the same thing with. They actually, realistically, dude, they could do this. And every time Tech moves, it'll go.
Dude, I'm sorry. That would make me really mad, though, if they did that. Some things, if you're going to choose to have a death, have the death. Don't ruin the impact of it.
I don't think they're going to do that. I mean, they could Bucky Barnes him, but they already technically did that with Echo. So it's not exactly a creative plot thread.
Yeah.
I want the 6 million credit clone. Just for meme material.
Yeah. Adrian wrote, Bad Batch Season 2 finale was emotionally worse than Order 66. Plan 99 reference to 99 Cloning the Sacrifice. Completely disagree. I think that's way off the mark. Order 66 is way more emotionally impactful. But, and if you grew up, if you're younger and you grew up with Clone Wars or this show, maybe it impacts you in that way. But I disagree. Nikolai hates it. I think he's commented on some of our stuff. Hate it, so boring. Give me incredible stories with the biggest characters. Heir to the Empire, Young Palpatine, Master and Apprentice, more Tales of the Jedi, Sith, Starkiller, Ahsoka, Show, Peak, Core, Dave, Star Wars. I don't really fully understand that comment, but sure, whatever you say, buddy. I get not everyone's going to love this show, but it seems a bit harsh.
I mean, it was pretty positively received all around, and I think yeah, I definitely agree with everybody else's thoughts here. It was a very enjoyable finale. It's just now I want more, and I feel like the season just got started and they cut us off right as it was getting really, really interesting, and I'm just frustrated from that end. Because from a story standpoint, it feels like they set up a lot of stuff, and I'm just disappointed that we didn't get any resolution, because that would have been nice. That would have been nice, but I digress. Yeah. I digress.
Yeah. Well, guys, thanks for writing. Thanks for participating. Write your comments below. Let us know if you agree, what your theories are for Season 3, either here or at our email at anotherstarwarspod@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at @star_wars_pod. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Please also follow us on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, Anchor Breaker, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a nice review. That helps us. Also, click the notification bell here. Click subscribe. Click like, because this season may be over, but we have many more Star Wars breakdowns to come, including Mandalorian Season 3, which we're both a little bit nervous about. If you haven't seen that breakdown video, go check that out if Melissa has it up now. Maybe it'll be up by the time this video comes out.
Usually Mando's out before Bad Batch.
Well, let's get that thing up and go watch that if you've enjoyed this. Thanks for sticking around, guys. If you're new, welcome to the channel. If you're returning, thank you guys for sticking with us. We have lots more stuff to come, so this is why it's important to subscribe and comment and tell your friends and all that fun stuff. If you want to see our reactions, breakdowns, and other interesting stuff to come in the future. I am relieved that we get to actually focus on some other content now.
Yeah, it's Wednesdays have been kind of overwhelming lately. And I've honestly how do I want to say this? I have more so looked forward to Bad Batch than I have Mando. So now that Mando actually has my attention, I think it's just going to be my reviews might be a little bit more intense. I don't know. Maybe it'll pick up, maybe it won't. Hard to say by this point, but I'm going to miss these little Bad Batch breakdowns until next year, assume that it'll be out next spring, but I'm going to miss it in the meantime.
Well, we'll have Ahsoka show, rest of Mando this season, so there's a lot to come. Well, we'll also have to figure out what happens when my child is here, because that might screw things up for both of us, but
TBD.
We'll figure that out when we get there, TBD. Yeah. But guys, thanks for joining. It's been fun. Bad Batch Season 2 is in the books. Another Star Wars show done with. And we're approaching our 2nd-year anniversary, which is crazy. Doing the show for almost 2 years, and we're going to keep
May the 4th.
May the 4th is our anniversary. Very appropriate. Definitely wasn't on purpose at all. All right, guys, we will see you next time on another Star Wars podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and check us out next week for our Mandalorian Breakdown Episode 6. See you next time. Bye.
Bye, guys.